We continue with the final installment of American Made, the return of U.S. manufacturing. Today we focus on creating high-tech jobs here at home. First, a few details about the size and scope of our next guest's latest challenge. It's currently the largest commercial capital expansion project in the United States. It will cost $4.6 billion when it's finally completed and will create 1,400 jobs. Some workers will start moving into the first building in just a few weeks. It's also part of an ecosystem that makes up New York's version of Silicon Valley. It's Globalfoundries' state-of-the-art facility in Malta, New York, about 25 miles north of Albany. Joining us now is Douglas Grose, the CEO of Globalfoundries. Dr. Grose, welcome to Bottom Line. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Silicon Valley and upstate New York, who knew? Has this been a secret?
Well, it's been in the works for a while. I mean, the ecosystem that's important to us has been developing over time. The university system at State University at Albany has been a forerunner in the nanotechnology era. IBM, who is one of our partners, is in the Tech Valley. And way back in Governor Pataki's realm, he had the vision of bringing manufacturing back into New York and set the stage for allowing us to start this huge investment that we're making.
What types of manufacturing jobs are we talking about?
Well, they're all varieties. It's a cross-section of people who are technicians that work in a clean room producing semiconductor products to manufacturing and facilities maintenance people who take care of the tools, and engineers who are part of the semiconductor ecosystem that are so needed in this fabricator.
Are you having a hard time finding skilled workers? Because one of our guests this week told us that's the case with his company. You would think that in these economic times and with the unemployment rate being what it is, that there would be a lot of skilled workers just clamoring for jobs. Is that the case?
Well, we're finding who we need, and it's today we're starting to hire. We've got about 375 people in Malta, New York. Mm-hmm. And by the end of this year, we'll probably have about 900 people, and by the end of 2012, about 1,400. And it's a mixture of experienced people who we hire from any place in the world where we can find them. Mm-hmm. And out of the 375 people, about half of them are actually from outside of New York, even outside of the U.S. We've got actually 15 countries representative. Wow. And another 50% are from the local area.
What has that segues very nicely. What has this meant for Malta and for the surrounding area?
Well, it's just beginning, and you can see signs of it, because for the 1,400 jobs that we'll create by the end of 2012, there's another probably 5,000 jobs in addition to companies that support us. So the equipment companies, the companies that bring us the very special gases and chemicals that we need in our manufacturing process, they're all beginning to locate there. So you can see signs of them hanging up their shingles in the surrounding area and bringing people in. So they're hiring there as well.
Dr. Grose, talk to us about the plant. What types of chips are we talking about, and who are your customers?
Well, this will be the state-of-the-art semiconductor facility, any place in the world, leading-edge technology. We talk about dimensions, so we'll start at 28 nanometer dimensions, which is really cutting edge today. And the sort of products we'll make are anything from computer chips for our customers to communications, wireless for smartphones, to anything in the consumer space.
Have you received any help from the federal government?
Well, we received help from New York State. So for this investment that'll be over $4.6 billion, New York State has put together a set of incentive packages that include tax direct incentives to $1.3 billion, and that helps level the playing field. Otherwise, we can't compete in making these sorts of investments here in the U.S.
Dr. Grose, I'm sure you've heard the talk that the United States of America just isn't the manufacturing hub, that it's going overseas to emerging markets and such. How do you respond to that type of talk?
Well, it has happened. I mean, over the last 15 to 20 years, if you look at our industry in semiconductors, we are the #1 export industry in the U.S., believe it or not. But that is declining. And for the last 15 years, those sorts of advanced investments have been made in Taiwan and Singapore and other Asian countries.
And declining because of?
Because of these tax and policy disincentives that don't allow us to compete in a level playing field. So
what I gather from that then, because all this talk on Capitol Hill with a lot of companies keeping some of their profits overseas because the tax rate here is at 35%, is a tax moratorium what's needed right now, or is maybe having that 35 to maybe 17, would that be an incentive to boost local economies and to get companies to bring that money back to the United States to create good paying jobs for American citizens?
Well, I think it's a number of things. Comprehensive tax reform is very, very key. So obviously lowering the overall tax rate for corporations from 35 down to something that's, on the world stage competitive. R&D investments, making sure that the United States, and in this case New York State, stood up and made the leveling of the playing field with these sorts of incentive packages.
Sir, if I might ask, the tax rate as it stands right now, is that hurting your ability to expand as rapidly as you'd like?
Well, it will, unless we continue to get places like New York State to allow us to, make these investments by them understanding that the jobs that we can create and the investment we can create comes from their investment as well.
Globalfoundries is a partnership. You do have folks working with you in Abu Dhabi. Tell us about that.
Well, our major investor is from Abu Dhabi, and one of the reasons that they've gone into the semiconductor area is to really change as well their society, their country. And so it goes from education to the manufacturing footprint to the technology ecosystem that we'll be able to start developing in their country at the right time.
Dr. Grose, you have a 3E strategy. What is it? Outline those for us.
Well, 3E is, number one, education is very critical to our business. So it's finding this talent that we talked about to populate these 1,400 jobs, which include everybody from PhDs on down to folks that will work in the manufacturing. So being in New York, the education system, as rich as it is, allows us to tap into that and be a part of it. Second is the ecosystem. So in Tech Valley, as we call it, from someplace north of Albany, New York, down to New York City, we participate with companies like IBM and our partners like Samsung, who participate in joint development as well. So that ecosystem that has been developed is critical to us as well. And then the third is this economic equation. It's the policies, it's the tax equation, it's the R&D incentives to be there and create this long-term innovation.
Dr. Grose, in our last minute, you saw what we call our SOT string at the beginning of this, where we heard from some of the other folks who've been on this week. What does the Made in the USA label mean right now as opposed to what it meant like 30, 40, even 50 years ago?
Well, I think people are searching for what it does really mean, and we're intending at Globalfoundries to bring that back in a very, very complex, capital-intensive environment and create well-paying jobs that really will grow over time and help us bring back the label Made in America.
If I might ask in our last 20 seconds, small business, is that going to be the engine of growth that drives this economy forward?
I think it is, but it also takes a combination of large investments corporations that can make as well that spur these indirect investments that we see in the local area up in Albany, where those small companies will be there to support us as we grow our direct base.
Dr. Douglas Grose, CEO of Globalfoundries in upstate New York, joining us as we conclude our series, American Made, on manufacturing in the U.S. Dr. Grose, it's a pleasure to meet you, sir. Thanks so much for coming on.
Appreciate it.